Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another Market Conversations. Boy, I am actually excited to be having a conversation with one of the OGs in the XRP / crypto YouTube scene. That's Tony from Thinking Crypto is in the green room, and we're going to bring him on. Let me quickly say hello to everybody before I start my dialogue. We got JDO came in early, Cougar Love from Costa Rica's in the house. Kashta, by the way, Brady, read the comments. We want to get Kashta. We want to get that email and get a link, and we'll bring him in him or her at the end of the show. Jungle Link's in the house. Let's see, we got T Rich, Johnny Midas, P Kelly. We got Kathleen from Hawaii. Aloha. Bitta Avenue. Nice to see you, Bitta. All right, and there is apparently a bunch more people watching that are not chiming in on the chat. So to set some context for this discussion that we're going to have tonight is that tomorrow morning I meet with the Patreon group and we disperse all the subscription dollars that have come in for this month into an investment fund, and its fund's been really doing well. And I was looking through assets because every once in a while I'll make a suggestion. Most of the time the patrons are making the suggestions, they're voting on what we're going to do and our allocations are going to be. And I was looking at XRP. Now I hold a little XRP and I'm an XRP lover from a tech standpoint, but I haven't been a lover as an investor. Now I haven't fully ever been able to really explain why. You know, a lot of people just think some Jerry's just now all of a sudden an XRP hater. No, I'm not an XRP hater, but I am an investor and I have a fiduciary responsibility to the future wealthy Jerry to make very sound, rational investments. Now, how I do that is a process that I've developed over years, right? Over my years in this game. And I think it's pretty sound. I'm going to share that with you. I've already shared it with Tony several days ago, so he's had a chance to go over it. And tonight, in the discussion, I'm going to represent basically the bull case about XRP, and Tony's going to bring I'm going to be the bear. I'm going to be I don't think XRP is a good investment. Tony's going to tell us why he thinks it's a good investment. And at the end of this particular process, we'll get to a point where we will be able to say it's a trade, it's an investment, or it's a pass. And it's a process that everyone should do when they're evaluating any asset, whether it be a stock, a home, or a crypto. I think this applies to all these things. I use it in my evaluation process for everything that I'm considering allocating capital to. You may find some of this useful for yourself in your own portfolio construction. So without any further ado, I'll just say hi to JJ, Belinda, Professor. I didn't catch you guys in the beginning. Let me bring in Tony. Hey, T, nice to have you, man.
Jerry, thank you for having me, man. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
You're looking sharp, and I'll tell you, so your channel has evolved just like you have as a human being and as a father and a husband and somebody who's taken on new career steps, you know, in the last year and a half. And I'm telling you, I kind of like the new look. I like the new look of the channel. It's looking nice.
Appreciate that. Yeah, always trying to evolve and fine tune and make it better for my viewers, as you do as well with your channel. And I appreciate all the cool guests you've been having on your channel as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, if anybody's tuning into this show, it has nothing to do with the studio, the aesthetics, or the physical appearance of the host. It's really been a content-driven show. And people that tend to find it tend to keep coming back. And that's been pretty cool. You know, but in the big scheme of things, 6,000 subscribers is not going to shake the world. But we've had some incredible conversations, and I think we're going to have one of those tonight. So I think one of the things that we should probably get out of the way first are things that you and I both agree on as it pertains to XRP, the asset that we're going to evaluate, right? I think it's fair to say that we both find the tech extremely elegant.
Yep.
Right. So the tech is sound. The actual tech itself, the XRP ledger, is sound. And that what Ripple is trying to do with RippleNet that brings a real use case to the asset that gives it an opportunity to be useful, therefore valuable, therefore have an accretive or appreciation element to the asset, because it is a fixed supply asset. At some point, if demand outstrips supply, you're going to get cost depreciation in the underlying cost of the asset. I think we can both agree on that, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're not going to talk about the tech because the tech is badass, right? And Ripple's got a good team.
Yeah.
No question about it.
They brought in people from the financial world, the banking world, payments world. So they definitely have a solid team.
Right. And they have the coffers, right? They have the money to fund expansion of what they want to do, bringing more utility to this asset. So those things we share. We both see those things. We both share those things. What I want to do is I want to bring onto the screen here. We're going to share the screen, Tony, with this really tight little evaluation process, right? It's a process that I designed to use to decide if something is a trade, an investment, or just something I'm going to pass on. And it's whenever I'm looking at a new project, I run it through this particular litany here, right? So let's start off. What is the thing? So when you ask yourself, when somebody asks you, what is XRP? What is kind of your elevator one line kind of response?
So I would say a tier one cryptocurrency / digital asset, which is actually being used to solve a real world problem. And it is a disruptive technology. What we've seen with the internet and the different websites and protocols and different features, whether it be hardware, software, and so forth, we've seen disruption, right? Classic case is Blockbuster getting disrupted by Netflix. Blockbuster had the opportunity to become Netflix, but they didn't innovate. Netflix took advantage of the internet and the high speed of the internet and the adoption of it, and moved content online and movies online. With Ripple, they're using XRP to disrupt Swift. But not only that, there's web monetization, which with Coil and micropayments, which I think is the future. We're already starting to see the model of the advertiser publisher is being disrupted via Brave browser and so forth. But Coil with XRP and micropayments, because of the speed and the efficiency and the low cost, XRP can be used as a native currency on the internet for cross-border payments and a variety of other things with regards to the XRP ledger.
Excellent. When I ask myself that question, or somebody asks me what XRP is, I say it's a global digital asset living on an open source ledger that conveys value from one thing to the other thing. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's not unique because there are a lot of assets that do that, but that it does do it very quickly and relatively inexpensively when you compare it to some of the more household names. Real quick, Andrew, nice to have you. Crypto Cajona, aloha, mi amigo. And also, hi. Simon, nice to have you. DC Precise, nice to see you in the house. Okay, so next one. What does it do? What's its purpose? So if you read the white paper and you've been here for a long time, you'll know this. But if you're new, hit it, Tony.
Oh, sure. So I think there's multiple layers to this, right? The cryptocurrency and digital assets are multi-pronged. I think the general layer that everybody's familiar with is a speculative layer, right? As with stocks, as with other assets, Bitcoin and everything else, Ethereum. Well, we're all kind of, there's a trading aspect. I can buy it low and sell high and make a profit. I can do leverage trading, whatever else that you want to do with it, right? From a speculative standpoint. Then you have the actual utility standpoint. So the digital asset on the XRP ledger, XRP on the XRP ledger, obviously allows for the movement of money faster cross-border. as mentioned before, bringing disruptive technology to an outdated system. But also there's other use cases like micropayments for web monetization and things along those lines. And the XRP ledger itself can be built upon. So decentralized exchanges, as we saw with Celogenic, they're building their NFT marketplace on the XRP ledger, airdropping tokens to XRP holders and things like that. So it is a digital asset that allows for multiple use cases. And obviously, there's a generic macro level use case of speculation and trading and so forth.
Well, when I look at that, I go back to the white paper. I go back to 3 years of basically Ripple, and its stated purpose is to disrupt a heavily burdened existing legacy financial system by bringing a very low cost value transmission layer to that world, right? The world of analog banking and multifaceted payment systems that are all disjointed and filled with friction and cost and overhead. This brings a technology to that space that can reduce those costs, reduce those frictions, and create a velocity of value transmission that is not possible today, which brings value to everybody in that particular thing. All right. Next, who created the thing? Who manages the thing? Really interesting. I think it's important, and I'll jump in first and let you come in after me on this one, Tony. Sure. I think it's really important when anybody's evaluating a project that they get a sense of who the creators were, who the founders are, and then who's actually managing the thing. Well, with XRP, it's kind of a star-studded cast. If you just think about innovation, right? Jed McCaleb, a founder, was instrumental in Bitcoin's leveling up, so to speak, with the creation of Mt. Gox, which is a website that he had for something else that he turned into a Bitcoin exchange. Gave a global marketplace for Bitcoin that wasn't there before, right? Which then set the stage for everything that's come beyond, Binance and Coinbase and all those things came after that model, not to mention all the other stuff he's done since he's left Ripple. So he's an impressive, smart guy. And then you've got the team that's there now and even heavy hitters that were there, when I think of Stefan, and he's off in Coil and all the guys that were doing things that are somewhere else. And the fact that you got Vitalik Buterin sleeping on people's couches, you know what I mean? And before he ever thought of Ethereum, you know what I mean? So they're impressive team, impressive business. So that's, do you want to add anything to the who created and who manages it element?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Jed McCaleb. Obviously, you have David Schwartz and Stephen Thomas. You mentioned. Obviously, these guys were the creators of it, and then the XRP, as the story goes, was gifted to the company Ripple. From there, they started using it. From a management standpoint, when I first heard that Ripple owned, over 50% of the supply, or about 50% of the supply. That was a concern of mine, being objective, right? That, hey, what's going on here? But then, I read up on the escrow and how that's managed to bring accountability, transparency, and to make sure, to be quite frank, they're not dumping on us, because we've seen that with other cryptos. And that is a risk, right? Even though they have that. Now, you may say, well, aren't you supposed to be making a bullish case? Well, yes, but with all things, looking at the market holistically, we know Satoshi's wallet, there's a lot there. We know Charlie Lee of Litecoin, we saw he dumped his Litecoin. So this is not something unique to Ripple per se, and with the XRP, but they do have a large amount of supply. But like I said, I think they put the logistics and mechanics of transparency. We have this in escrow. Here's how it's moved. Here's what's put back in it. So I think that transparency has helped alleviate some of that risk, but there is still a level of risk there.
All right. Now, this last little bit before we get into some of the specifics is kind of more conceptual, more global, more general. And this question I ask with every asset I look at is, what are the fundamentals of the thing? When I say fundamentals, I'm talking about the tokenomics, right? How many tokens will there be? Is it an ongoing inflationary distribution? Is it minted over time, like in the case of Bitcoin? Is it minted before anything happens in the case of XRP? And there's a lot of other assets, Cardano, things like that. I look at the issuance, right? Who, right? What the schedule is on that. And then who owns it? Who owns the thing, right? Is it owned by a bunch of early seed investors that got it for 2 cents? And when they do their whatever mechanism they use to get it to the public, is it already pumped up by 20% before it ever hits an exchange where I can get it? These are all things that I look at. Would you add anything to that valuation of fundamentals, Tony? Tokenomics, issuance, schedule, and who owns it? Would you add anything into the quote unquote fundamentals category?
I think you covered it. I think what I mentioned before, the escrow, I think is just that important factor, right? Because when you look at it from on its face, of the supply control, you're like, okay, pump the brakes here. But I think the escrow and the markets report that they put out, Ripple, that they put out every quarter, once again, that transparency helps alleviate some of that risk. So I think from a management standpoint, I think the transparency is very important, right? That not just Ripple and XRP, but any crypto project, they need to show transparency. Are they burning? Are they, how, like you said, is some being held by a foundation? Is it locked up? What's happening around that, right? And who's managing it? Those factors are so important when reviewing any crypto project.
Interesting. So another factor, once I get through kind of the fundamental areas, then I make an actual list, right? If I'm really serious about evaluating a project, I'll have a list with a line down the middle on the page, just like assets and liabilities. It's headwinds and tailwinds. Headwinds, just like you're in a sailboat, if the wind is coming at you, you're going to have a hard time pushing forward because you got a headwind. Where you can really get cooking if you're sailing is when the wind is coming from behind you and pushing the sail. That's a tailwind. So headwinds are things that can hinder you. Tailwinds are the things that are going to help you. So these are questions that I ask when I'm measuring a headwind or a tailwind. Are there impediments that could or will become accelerants or vice versa? Right? Are there things that are hindering it now that if something changed would all of a sudden flip it around to either good being in my favor or being against me as an investor? How is the thing funding its development? And then who are the early investors, the notable VCs, companies, or powerful players that are behind it? You know what? Let me just go through the rest of this, and then we'll actually go into XRP. Right? So I'll just finish. So what is the character of the community, whether that be on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, at my local softball league, whatever? What is the character of the community that is talking about the thing, right? And who's beating the drum, right? Who are these people, right? You've got always people with YouTube channels that have a particular focus on one thing, or more so this thing than that thing. I look at that, social media, and then I also look at the corporate, and then I look at national, right? Are there favorable jurisdictions for the thing, right? Is a jurisdiction behind this thing complacent or against it, right? I really look at those things. And then I do a risk assessment. I do a risk to reward ratio. Most of the time, it'll be this amount of money. So that's what I'm risking. What's the downside risk is this amount of money going to zero. What is the reward ratio to that? What's the upside? And if it's a favorable deal, a lot of times I'll make the deal if it checks the other boxes. Then I always look at the time frame. And again, at the end, I'm asking myself, is the thing a pass, a trade, or an investment? So let's go into XRP headwinds and tailwinds. So you're the bull, you present the tailwinds, and then I'll come in with the things that I think are the deterrents.
Sure. So lots to go through. I think one is the global reach. The fact that Ripple and even the XRP ledger itself has a global reach. It's not restricted to one region or jurisdiction. And two, as far as the people backing it, Ripple has some very strong investors. I think obviously people can read it on the website who is invested in the company itself. So they've gotten funded, meaning that people are bullish on the technology and what they're building. Third, the partners. Obviously, they have some big name partners, Bank of America, American Express, and so forth. So I think who are the friends you keep could be the analogy used there of who's working with you, right? So there's some big names. Not in the US, but outside of the US, they're making a lot of progress in certain countries like Japan with SBI Ripple Asia. SBI Holdings is a huge financial conglomerate there. And Mr. Yoshitaka Kitao, CEO and president, he's tweeted a lot about what their plans are in their quarterly reports. He's put out decks showing, here's what we want to do with XRP. We're also going to give XRP to shareholders and things along those lines. And they've already launched some corridors with ODL from Japan to Philippines, if I remember the corridor correctly. So there's corridors opened up using ODL. So the actual platform that is using XRP, it's getting adoption. We want it to happen in the largest capital market, but obviously we have this lawsuit issue and lack of clarity, but that's not exclusive to Ripple. We're seeing lack of clarity for a lot of other projects as well. But going back to my point, there's adoption of ODL in different parts of the world. We continue to see Ripple's building bridges with central banks, right? Meeting with them. I've interviewed Ripple's David Schwartz. He's talked about central banks are looking to build their CBDCs on private ledgers on the XRP ledger. So there's a network effect there. You have network adoption that increases the value of the token that's running or the oiling the gears on that platform. Think of Ethereum, where you have NFTs and ICOs. You just look at what NFTs and ICOs did for Ethereum. If you have a similar level of adoption of people building on the XRP ledger, there's going to be network value. Obviously, you want the token to be used, more, of course. We want higher levels of adoption, but I think that's going to come, a lot of it's going to come from the United States once we get clarity. So to summarize, but I got to keep everybody on the same page with me. Global adoption, huge partnerships and investors, and then you have big financial conglomerates invested in helping to build the ecosystem around XRP.
Interesting. I'll be honest, Tony. I can't. I wouldn't debate any of those points, right? I believe those are all truths, right? They are truths. Here's where I have the biggest hurdle to get over, right? Are the headwinds that XRP is up against. Now, obviously, the first and foremost is the SEC case. But truth be told, these headwinds that really that I'm seeing were present prior to that. And the truth of the matter is that the bias that I had, the Kool-Aid, the XRP Kool-Aid that I drank, didn't allow me to see them clearly. And it wasn't until the SEC case that after that I really see these very clearly. And here are the headwinds I see for XRP. So we've stated the SEC case, but that isn't the big one. The big one, it's not going to be used by United States banks, corporations, etc. Period. End of report. Doesn't have anything to do with the SEC. It has everything to do with this little bitty thing. I don't know if you ever heard of them. It's called the IRS. You ever hear of those guys?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. XRP, despite what FinCEN had stated, is considered a digital asset. Therefore, it's property. Therefore, any financial institution, bank, corporation, or otherwise that acquires it, when they are no longer acquiring it, are going to be subject to all the same capital gains taxes, etc., that you or I would face. It's an asset, it's property. If you buy it at this price and you move it at that price, high or low, there is a plus or minus gain. It's either a plus gain or a minus gain. And I don't know of one single business that is going to want to hire or develop software to keep track of that so that they're in compliance with their tax codes and their tax people and their auditors and all those things. Huge headwind. Second headwind. Even if a company could get past the accounting element of it, right, as it pertains to the IRS, how do they get past the FASB rules as it pertains to indefinite intangibles? XRP, just like Bitcoin, if a corporation, bank, or otherwise publicly traded company takes XRP on their balance sheet and it goes down, they take a loss. They take a loss on their P&L. They take a loss on the way they report their quarterlies every single quarter. And there's no publicly traded company that I am aware of, except for MicroStrategy, that is really willing to take on that headache.
Well, Tesla did, and they're
not Tesla, but it's not 100% of their balance sheet. It's a piece of Tesla's overall balance sheet.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think MicroStrategy.
Same with Square.
What's that?
Square. The three non-crypto native publicly traded companies that have a substantial amount of Bitcoin, it's only MicroStrategies that has the overwhelmingly disproportionate reporting. The other ones don't have as much Bitcoin relative to the rest of their balance sheet that it throws them into a complete tailspin. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, sure. So are you saying that no one would want to hold XRP even at the same capacity as they're holding Bitcoin right now?
I'm saying I don't think they even want to hold Bitcoin. I think all digital assets, until FASB, right, this accounting standard that is used for publicly traded companies, until FASB changes the rule and allows these digital assets to be on their balance sheet and viewed as fair market value as opposed to indefinite intangibles. See, the thing about indefinite intangibles, Tony, let's say you're Google or any company, any publicly traded company who files a quarterly report once a quarter where you issue all the financials to your shareholders for transparency. You put a digital asset, I don't care if it's XRP or Bitcoin, on your balance sheet, and it goes below what you bought it at any time, that's the price. So it doesn't matter if you bought something at $1 and it shot down to 50 cents tomorrow, and then the very next day it shot up to $2, you'll still marking it at 50 cents, taking a 50-cent loss. And what that does to your P&L, your profit and loss, it makes it look like you're losing money.
Yeah,
that's what indefinite intangible, that's the nightmare of that accounting standard in GAAP accounting for publicly traded companies.
So here's the thing. Let's take MicroStrategy out the picture, because what Michael Saylor's doing is really
he's committed. He does not do shit.
He's the outlier here. But if you just look at Tesla, if you take, and like Square as well, if you take just a portion of your balance sheet and put it on there, which they have, of course, I think that's a risk they're willing to take, because the higher risk is the inflation of what's happening instead of the depletion of the purchasing value. They put it in there. Now look, we don't know how long they're going to hold on their balance sheet, so they could play the trading game, hey, I'm going to hold it through the bull cycle and then sell at the top, right? And then buy back in the bear market where the price is lower. They could do that, right? Just like you and I would. But at the same point, they are holding it. And the thesis is kind of how Paul Tudor Jones laid it out. And he's like, I'm not bullish on gold right now. I'm bullish on Bitcoin. They would rather take that risk, even because we're in early days, because the inflation and the money printing, it's so ridiculous right now.
And I think you're really coming from a person who, you're a retailer, you're a retail investor, and I get that. I don't think you're looking at it through the eyes of a Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a Citi, any of these banks that we want XRP to be held on their balance sheet to use in payment flows. That is this, Tony.
Well,
they are responsible to their shareholders. If you take on assets that can be marked down to the lowest point after you bought it to when it doesn't matter how much it's gone up after, it's marked at its lowest point, that is going to affect your P&L. It is going to affect your profit, it's going to affect the valuation of your company. You cannot do that they won't do it. You know why? Because they haven't done it.
Well, there's
inflation and the value of XRP and all these wonderful things. None of those things have moved any companies to use that asset. Case in point, MoneyGram. Why do you think MoneyGram didn't use it? It would have screwed them on how they report to their shareholders. Well, and I don't think enough of us know this and understand this. This is a major headwind. And until it changes, it ain't going to change.
Well, I want to make sure we make the distinction. So there's companies holding Bitcoin in their balance sheet as an inflation hedge, right? I don't know if companies want to hold XRP on their balance sheet, but I would say they would want to use ODL to move money faster, and they wouldn't need to hold it on their balance sheet because they would just be buying it on the liquidity exchanges and then sending that money, and then that value gets cashed out on the recipient. And so think like maybe Bitso in Mexico. So let's say MoneyGram, when they did their tests and so forth, they moved money faster for sure. But whether they would need to hold it on their balance sheet, I'm not sure. Bitcoin,
I think you're entering another discussion, and I think you're making a very good bull point. That, you know what, maybe it isn't wise under those circumstances, Jerry, to hold it. So why not just use it, right? Either use Ripple. Ripple could be their own bank. They could be their own bank, their own liquidity provider. People send them dollars. Dollars are currency. Ripple does the exchange. Bada boom, right?
Yeah.
Great. Somebody from out of the country sends it to Ripple. Ripple turns it into the dollar, sends it to the person that's supposed to go to. All that's wonderful. Ripple's a United States company. And even though they're not publicly traded yet, all the same property, plus and minus, apply to them, just like it does you and I.
But and this is where, once again, I want to make sure I make the distinction, because from my perspective, I'm not expecting like companies to hold XRP on their balance sheet. I'm more expecting.
Oh, we've already moved by that. We're talking about just using ODL. You're Bank of America. You're not going to put XRP on your balance sheet, but you want to utilize all the incredible efficiencies and reduce the friction in all your cross-border payments using a service like RippleNet and some outside XRP provider.
Right, which is how it's set up right now with various exchanges around the world. What was the one in Australia? I interviewed the CEO.
It's called Bitcoin, BTC.
Yeah. Carolyn Bowler, BTC Markets or something like that.
That's what it is, BTC Markets, yes.
Yeah, so like there's those designated, Bitso as well, like those designated exchanges, which are ODL liquidity providers. So they go through ODL, the XRP gets purchased there, sent to the receiving exchange or whatever it may be, company, and they cash it out there. So they wouldn't necessarily need to hold XRP. From as far as I research, and I think that's kind of the model that's set up and what's running right now in many of the Asian markets.
All right, I hear you again. Front. So what, in essence, what you're saying is we remove the friction that's currently in the quote unquote Swift model of moving monies, and now have the friction of the person who wants to send this value to that other place. Some intermediary is going to take that friction, is going to take on the friction of whether the spreads that are involved in converting this to that. They're going to carry the counterparty risk of holding this during that, right? When in this digital world with so many digital rails out there, stablecoins can do everything that XRP was designed to do with none of those things. So there is the reality of what's going on, right? The technology and the advancement of other alternatives have emerged over the last 2 years that weren't not present when I got here. When I got here, XRPs was the clear best tech to get that job done. And it was just a matter of how do we get adoption? What were the hurdles we needed to get over? And what I'm seeing now as an investor, and I don't dislike XRP's tech, I don't like the investment proposition. XRP's got still so many hurdles to get over that I could not in my right mind with any kind of conscience tell a new person that came into the space, buy XRP. I could not do that when there are so many other more accretive, easier adoptive type projects,
sure,
that aren't going to have any of these particular headwinds, or at least not as many as the same headwinds as XRP's up against.
So really quick on the stablecoins part,
please.
To your point, yes, stablecoins have improved. I think bank transfers of money. JP Morgan have their own stablecoin. I think that the issue that we're seeing though is that there's so many out there. Some have a negative connotation and issues like Tether behind it. I think the most legit is USDC with Circle, but it goes back to the trust issue. Should I trust Jerry coin or Jungle Inc. coin? What about my coin? And then what's going to happen? You have all these walled gardens and everybody has their own stable coin. Now you may say, hey, maybe these people trust each other, but at the same time, there's still a lack of trust, because why would I want to use JP Morgan coin to benefit JP Morgan? Why don't I create my own? But if you have a neutral asset out there that's not owned by any of these banks, so they don't control it specifically, that's kind of the use case and the non-trust factor, a neutral bridge asset.
Well, I think that, and let me bring this up because I think this is an important point. Dash says, but I don't even think stablecoins can do what XRP can do functionally. And up until a year and a half ago, he would be absolutely correct. However, USDC coin on, believe it or not, the Stellar blockchain,
yep,
is as fast and as frictionless and as cheap as XRP with no spread volatility risk other than the underlying asset, the US dollar. That's a truth.
No, I agree. Like I said, USDC is probably one of the most trusted, and it's getting adoption on multiple blockchains for sure. And I've talked to Jeremy Allaire about it, and I think one of the questions I asked him was, is your end goal to be adopted by the Fed? With the Fed, instead of creating a CBDC, they use the USDC. Obviously, he couldn't answer that question, but or give an answer at least. But I still see frictions, and Ripple is not looking to solve a problem that exists in the United States of moving money between U.S. banks who are on the same currency. It's more of the different currencies,
right?
And the cross border, where you have these, I don't know, there's 130 currencies worldwide, and all of them are going to be CBDCs. And I think we've seen that in itself. How do you bring interoperability between all those CBDCs? So Yes, stable coins to a degree will compete with XRP, but not from a cross-border standpoint. I don't think, unless, I don't know, the IMF says, "Hey, everybody's using USDC." Then I would say, you know what, Jerry, you got a point.
Well, I'll tell you, this is so this is a macro headwind. This is a macro headwind that we are now on. Of the 186 countries on the planet, okay, 162 of them have their own currency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's roughly 60 of those 162 are in deep doo-doo. We're talking about the Venezuelas, the Argentinas, the Turkeys, the Lebanons. I mean, the list goes on. Zimbabwe, This monster list. Not too long ago, El Salvador was in that same basket. They're no longer in that basket. Why? Because they've become dollarized.
Mm-hmm.
And more countries whose currencies are failing are being dollarized. Therefore, if more and more of the countries take on the dollar, like Panama did, like El Salvador did, and like other countries that are going to follow, take on that US dollar, then there is no need to transfer the value from a US dollar that came from the United States to a US dollar that went to Panama. Right? It's a dollar.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So the demand side of XRP is diminishing, and it has nothing to do with XRP. It has absolutely nothing to do with XRP. It's just the macro dynamics of the world. But it is a headwind as an investor looking at the asset to allocate money to. And then I'm going to leave you with this. This is my last one. And that is this. And it's the big elephant in the room. People don't understand this. Ripple holding 50 billion of those things. And I don't care what kind of escrow you have them in. They own 50 billion and they're going to release $1 billion a month. And if the market is demanding it, they will sell it. And every single XRP they sell is an XRP that isn't being taken out of the retail space. And that is a headwind that every single investor should be aware of, knowledgeable of, and know that if demand does not outstrip what Ripple can put into the market, the retail market will not benefit. And that's just the truth. That's just the math.
Oh yeah, and like I said earlier, right? That was one of the things that, being risk averse, looking at it, I'm like, okay, this is a red flag. But after researching it, reading up on what goes out the escrow, what gets put back in the escrow on a monthly basis as well, those things and the transparency in the quarterly reports kind of alleviated some of that risk. But as I said before, there's still a level of risk there. But I would say, as with every other cryptocurrency, there are risks with it, right? Nothing is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not risk-free. Yeah. But if I'm an investor and I know I'm thinking about a fixed asset crypto, right? Or any product or asset that's got a fixed supply, I want to know where supply is going to come from.
Sure.
And who is going to want the demand. Those are the two elements of the supply and demand thing that I want to be aware of, right? So we've got retail demand for XRP, check. Okay, excellent. Got a big community behind it, all those wonderful things. We've got outside the United States, actual commercial use cases. Excellent, check. But in the same breath, you have to acknowledge that there's a company that can put 1 billion of them into the market a month. Now I know that we're not debating on the amount, and we're not debating on how well Ripple has done as far as being transparent and publishing this information. They've been great. They're excellent. I wish other people would do that. But the fact of the matter is that consistently month over month, Ripple is putting XRP into the market, and that demand that they're meeting isn't going into the retail space to acquire it. And that's the only way a retail investor is going to see price appreciation, is if the demand for what's in the retail market is supplied by the retail market, not a corporation out of San Francisco. And that is the truth. I don't know why people want to argue that point. Supply and demand is real simple. It doesn't matter where the demand comes in, and it doesn't matter where the supply comes from. You need to know those things. And if they're not in your favor, you should really consider what you're doing, investing in something like that, because who are you enriching, really? So anyway, that's my spiel. I can't think if there were, I don't think I have any other major headwinds that, you know what I mean, as far as for discourse here. Have you thought of any new headwinds? Tailwinds that are going to push XRP forward?
Well, here's the thing. What the macro issue, which I think has held back the demand in the United States, I would say, is the lack of clarity. And this goes back years, even before the lawsuit. Obviously, the lawsuit exacerbated the whole need for clarity, but obviously the entire market is feeling the pain a bit because of the SEC and Gensler and so forth. But once there's clarity, I think demand in the United States will rise.
Despite the FASB rules?
Oh, yeah. And
you think they'll circumvent that by businesses that want to use XRP will never touch XRP? That's the only way to circumvent that, right?
As far as what we know, and the way ODL is set up, so if it's Bank of America is going to go live with ODL to move money to certain markets, but I don't, from my perspective at least, and I'm open to feedback and other people weighing in who may know much, maybe a bit more than me, but I think I personally don't expect companies to hold XRP, but rather use the rails, the ODL rails, to move money. So that's my thought process, and that's where the utility is going to come from, and the demand and so forth.
Okay, I hope that happens, and I hope that the intermediary, whoever that is, who's ever going to take on that counterparty risk, who's ever going to take on that currency spread risk, who's ever going to take on that quote unquote accounting risk, I hope that happens. I really do. But I just see it. There's so many hurdles. Like when I get to the end of the sheet, is this a trade? Is this an investment? Is it a pass? Here's the thing. I hold XRP, but I'm not buying more of it, right? Sure. I sold 130,000 at 70 cents on December 23rd. The night I read Brad Garlinghouse tweet, the SEC suing us tomorrow, bringing a suit against us tomorrow, I went from 130,000 XRP to zero. I've since bought another 10,000 when it was at 22 cents, and I'm cool with that. It's sitting there earning 5% on Nexo, earning more XRP. It's just sitting there, doesn't have to do much. And the truth be told, if you were a crypto person who came into this market 364 days ago, and you put your $1,000 into XRP, and your best friend put $1,000 into Bitcoin on the very same day, 364 days ago, the XRP holder is actually at a higher profit than the Bitcoin holder. So on that day and time, not a bad deal. Sure. Not a bad deal.
And just for transparency for the folks watching and listening, and Jerry, I've said for years, diversify. You put all your eggs in one basket, you're not being risk averse. You're asking for problems, right? And a lot of people get emotionally attached to their investments. I know a lot of XRP holders who are like that, and I'm all in an XRP. And look, there's Bitcoin maximalist world like that too, and other cryptos as well. But I personally hold like over 20 cryptos. I diversify. My top 3 are XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum. So while my XRP portfolio segment has devalued because of the lawsuit in the situation, I'm doing great with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, and all of that. So I'm not losing sleep. And I'm holding XRP for the long term, so I have a macro level view. Now, some people may trade it in the short term, right? Like you said, you can certainly do swing trading because of that speculation layer, which regardless of the lawsuit or whatever is happening, whales will just move the market in different coins. And that's a fact, right? Just look at meme coins. So you can make money off of it trading. If you're looking for a long-term holds, like I'm going to take a bet on this and I'm not going to look at it for a few years or whatever, I think is a solid bet. If you're trying to buy it now and you're like, oh, I'm going to catch this bull run, there's a high risk there for sure. Because it may not, because this lawsuit, we don't know what's going to happen with this lawsuit. I'm optimistic, but at the end of the day, I can't predict the future. If I could, I'll know the lottery numbers next week and I'll be buying an island, right? But like everybody else, you read the facts. You got to do your research, be risk averse. I think diversify. And I'm still bullish on XRP. Just because I feel of the situation, the way the lawsuit's going, the way the SEC's position and the rest of the crypto market and the direction of Congress and everybody, I think Ripple comes out of this successful and then does a relisting. Whether that happens in time of the bull market is to be seen. But I would say that's my perspective. That's how I'm thinking about it.
Are you still dollar cost averaging into XRP?
If I was earlier when the market was dipping, like when Bitcoin peaked and then everything dipped after that. Yeah, I took some in buying the dip, because but I was also buying everything else too. So
Okay.
I was just Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Chainlink, and so forth, VeChain. So it's not like I was specifically buying XRP, but I did add some for sure.
I'll tell you what. So let's okay, so that was your bull and bear case for XRP. I want to spend the remaining time I have with Tony praising him in a way, but also there is a real dichotomy, a difference between Tony and I. I followed Tony for the last 3 years. Tony has always been about diversification, right? And if you're dollar cost averaging on a consistent basis, in other words, you got a job, you've got X amount of your income that you can deploy towards an investment, starting off with a couple of assets is wonderful. And as they grow, adding a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and diversifying, there's nothing wrong with that. For those of you that don't have much, here's the game. This is what worked for me. Concentration. In the beginning, you've got to concentrate if you want a real bang. There is a bigger risk to it, but if the risk pays off, you're going to get a return. That's what happened for me. And it wasn't until I got that boom that I was able to diversify. Now I have 31 assets, right? Ranging from $1,000. And, I spent $30 on Decentraland a year and a half ago. Now it's $3,000. It's 3,000 of my portfolio. Right on, sitting on Celcius, earning 2%. So with my little strategy of, like, for instance, Tony, I don't have an income, nothing. The Patreon group, all that money goes into a fund for the Patreon group. The YouTube money I split with Brady. It's $50 a month, maybe, sometimes 20, sometimes nothing, depending upon. So it's not like I don't have an income, but all my crypto is earning yield. So that means I have a continuous dollar cost averaging coming in the form of the Bitcoin's earning more Bitcoin, the Ethereum is earning more Ethereum, Cardano's, every asset is earning more of itself. That plus the other moves that I've made, strategically collateralizing some loans, buying assets. When the assets go up, sell off a portion, pay off the loan, keep the balance. The portfolio's bigger at the end of the day. Yay, yay, yay. But in the beginning, folks, if you don't have much, concentrate. Take 2 assets that you absolutely see and stick everything you got into it and until you have some room, and then diversify. You can do anything you want. You could take $1 in this world and split it in 5 ways, right? 20, 20, 20, or split it in 10 ways, 10 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents, whatever works for you. But there's a lot of different ways to get to the same place. What's interesting about the way Tony got to where he is and the way I got to where I am, and they were both completely different methods. Tony's got a well-rounded, very healthy, diversified portfolio. Jerry has got a very healthy, diversified portfolio. So you and I have ended up in the same place, but we've gotten there from different ways.
Oh, sure. And I think you brought up a great point. And context is important, right? Like you said,
Right.
If folks don't have much you're starting with, pick one, whatever it be, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. Well, let's not say XRP now, but because of this lawsuit. But pick something like you said, make some gains, and then you can take some of that gains and spread it out. And if you get more cash in other ways, I hold stocks too. I think I mentioned in today's video, I bought some Bitcoin mining company stocks. I own some Coinbase stock because I think on the business side, as these companies continue to get investments, the market grows, their stock value is going to grow as well. And what's interesting, the miners are holding the Bitcoin. They're not selling it, which I think is incredibly bullish. I think they're expecting higher prices.
Let me ask you something about that, because I intend at some point here to further diversify, and of course, getting into the stock market is part of that. Don't you just absolutely love the transparency in the digital asset space relative to the Fortune 500, the top 15 of the NASDAQ? Even when they do their quarterly reports, it's always, it's really hard to discern the truth. Right? The real truth. And with these Bitcoin companies, whether it's Coinbase, whether it's the miners are great. It's all audited, easy to see data. There are so many people taking that open source code and creating analytics tools and measuring tools. So if you want to invest in Hut 8, it is really easy through a blockchain explorer to see exactly how many Bitcoin they generate and how many are they keeping. I mean, you don't need their reporting. You don't need their reporting. It's already there.
Yeah, it's such a more transparent world that we're heading in, and the blockchain obviously increasing trust. Like you said, a lot of things are verifiable, and the internet itself started a lot of that. I think we see people were able to communicate better and share knowledge and information, and now we're taking it to another level where we can keep companies accountable, right? It's pretty amazing what's happening.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. So you're furthering your diversification into the stock market, but sticking with kind of a crypto theme. That's wonderful. I did a kind of a quality of life diversification out of crypto. I bought some property here in Costa Rica. I'll be building my home. I have a corporation that I started down here around a farm and a business and some stuff we're going to do. And that is interesting because there is an economics to that really go to my favor, i.e. the appreciation of the property, right? The appreciation of the property, even just in its form. I bought it for X. I've already been offered double that. And I've only owned it 3 weeks,
Wow.
right? Because the real estate guy is a buddy of mine. He hooked me up, but he wanted my permission to put his sign on the property. He wanted people, so that he got some real exposure, and he has gotten exposure, and people have called him for that lot, offered me double what I paid for it. 3 weeks offered me double what I paid for it, Tony. And I can only imagine what value will be created once I actually develop the land, infrastructure, electricity, housing, all the stuff that I'm going to have going on there. And I can collateralize that at some point. Right.
Oh yeah.
And use that long-term vehicle to get fiat now, base a loan in fiat that's inflating away. We all know that game, right? If you can borrow money now at a much cheaper rate than whatever you use it for will appreciate, you're a winner.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I think you have the right mindset, and I'm thinking the same thing. I'm not, I've said many times on my channel, I'm not taking profits to have my cash sit in the bank and depreciate or whatever you call it. I'm going to go invest it in assets and put my money in assets that are going to appreciate over time. And real estate, you can't go wrong with that. Real estate's not going anywhere. Land is not going. We need places to live, right? This is like a foundational element of civilization, of life. So I have a secondary property. I'm possibly going to invest in a rental. So I'm earning income. So I'm looking to take my gains and put my money to work, similar to what you're doing.
I had a buddy of mine. He's in the Patreon group, and he's like, I love real estate. Always loved real estate. I want to get involved with real estate, but I love this crypto thing too. And so for any of you out there that are going through that same thing, and but you can't afford to go buy a second property all on your own, check out Lofty AI. It's run on Algorand. And they actually buy homes, right? They buy income properties, and they fractionalize it. You can buy a piece of it with your Algorand through the Algorand wallet.
That's pretty wild what's happening. Tokenization on everything, and real estate is going to be a big one. I know it was kind of too early, but Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, who's now all of a sudden the biggest crypto bull, even though but he was doing a smoke and mirrors move over the years. I remember he, back in 2018, was working with a company that was tokenizing a brand new building being put up in Manhattan, in New York City. And yeah, fractionalized shares. It's amazing what's happening. So that's the future. And people,
I think it's a real knife in the back of that whole income and inequality paradigm, right? Because what used to keep guys like you and me away from getting like really, really wealthy is the ability to take on a $500,000 thing, right? That would appreciate at 10 or 15% a year, Now, with this digital asset space and tokenized or fractionalized value or assets, property, digital property, or the representation of a real world property fractionalized, is that the richest among us can get a percentage, and so can the poorest.
Yeah.
So the guy with $5, and that's all he's got, can get in and buy a fraction of the very same thing that I can buy a fraction of, or Bill Gates can buy a fraction of.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the ability to invest in assets is just gotten easier, right? Because if I'm putting 10% of my net worth in, which is obviously a lot higher now than it ever was in the history of my life, and my son, who is kicking ass at $18 an hour, he puts 10% in. We can both put 10% into something,
right?
You know what I mean? And that even playing field was not available 4 years ago. It just wasn't.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot about it on my channel. Like, you could be in any part of the world and be part of the crypto asset class. Like you said, you could put $100 into Bitcoin, and you own an asset that also a millionaire and a billionaire own. Exactly. It's pretty amazing, and all you need is an internet connection and a smartphone to do it. And then you
can earn yield on it. You can compound yield on top of that.
Yep.
Just like the rich have always been able to do.
Exactly.
Hey Brady, let's get you in here for final thoughts. I want to respect Tony's time. Tony, I really do appreciate you coming on here. Not a lot of people, when I put out that tweet, not a lot of people responded in a favorable way. It was like, I mean, it was funny. I had people tell me that I needed to study what XRP is.
Well, it's healthy to have these discussions. I think sometimes people and not everybody's the same, and we all learn at different speeds and times and levels and whatever. But you need to look at the bear case for whatever asset you hold. If you're not, then you're a cult follower. your head is buried in the sand. You have to look at the risk.
I agree. Brady.
Yes.
All right. Your thoughts, man. Are you investing, trading, or passing on XRP?
I am honestly trying to figure out Nexo to put my XRP on to gain a little something on the side. So I think I would call it holding what I have, but not increasing. So not passing, but not selling.
Okay. You're
If
going to
that
keep
makes
what
any
you have.
sense.
You're not going to sell what you have, but you're not buying anymore.
Correct.
That's the position I'm in. Tony's already said he's still buying. Good for you, Tony. You get to continue to be a member of the XRP army in good standing. I've been excommunicated. They stripped the rank off of me and court-martialed me and sent me out the door. But I'll tell you what, since I sold that XRP, my life financially has changed. Had I stayed in XRP and not done anything, I would have only 15% of what I have now. So I have 85% more because I did what I did when I did.
Bongo.
So I'm not at all upset with the way things worked out, and I'm not at all a hater of XRP. But I think people need to be rational. I put out that tweet, right? And all of the it was almost like just ignorance. I was bombarded with ignorance. And I went, huh. But thank God there are you, Crypto Eddie, Jungle Inc., and a whole bunch of other rational YouTubers that are rational about this. And so thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to give you an opportunity for final thoughts.
Yeah, sure. First, thank you for having me, and it's always great to be chatting with you. And like you said, we got to have this healthy discourse. We have to look at the pros and cons of everything, and leave your emotions at the door when it comes to investing. You use your emotions; it's not going to end well for you. Don't get emotionally attached to an asset. And I'm not saying that to discourage investing in XRP or whatever, because obviously I still hold XRP. I'm buying the dips. I'm bullish, but I'm also diversified, and I'm healthily diversified, where if XRP goes to zero tomorrow, I'm not losing sleep. I'm not crying. I'm not out of money. I'm doing well because I have my other assets, which have appreciated. So diversify, guys, and no, you don't have to own 30 assets, but if you diversify into 5, 6, that's better than just holding one asset and putting all your eggs in one basket. I think that's kind of my thoughts.
Right on. I appreciate that. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Next week, we'll come back with something. I haven't figured out what I want to do next week for the show, but I want to thank each and every one of you that have tuned in. And obviously, thank you so much, Tony, for stepping up, because not a lot of people are willing to have rational discord, right?
For sure. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for having me.
People shy away from something that isn't in line with their bias, right? So, folks, thanks so much, and we will see you all next week. Pura vida.